What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Wrestling City, and today we are reacting to yet another video by WrestleMania, and this one is titled 10 WWE Wrestlers Who Refuse to Win at WrestleMania. So it is unbelievable to say, but we're actually just about a month away from WrestleMania 41, and I figured what better way to get into that WrestleMania season than to react to another WrestleMania themed video. So I am very interested to see which ones I have and have not heard about on this and hear about their logic behind these decisions. Yeah, without further ado, let's get this video started.
WWE Wrestlers Who Refused to Win at WrestleMania. Number 10, AJ Styles versus
Okay,
Chris
I've heard of
Jericho.
this one.
Now, heading into
I don't know
AJ
why.
Styles' WrestleMania debut, fans were convinced that AJ would secure a huge win over Chris Jericho. AJ was the firm favorite for the matchup, as this was his first ever WrestleMania matchup, and it wasn't as if Jericho needed the win, as his popularity
Everybody
and star power
thought Styles
couldn't be
was gonna
touched
win.
during this time. But shockingly, WWE decided to have Jericho win the match, and it was later reported that AJ wanted to lose the match. Was this because AJ wanted to show that he was a team player? Well, potentially. It may have also been that AJ was of the belief that he shouldn't just walk into a prominent spot on the WrestleMania card and just win, and it was his duty to do the honors.
I think that's just more of a being humble type of thing, because I think we all know when we look back at this, this was like 2 months after Styles debuted in WWE. But although he just debuted, he has been a veteran in the actual like wrestling business, overall. So Styles should have definitely gotten this win at this WrestleMania 32. I think that this is just another showing of Vince's his booking at the time. Upsets for the sake of upsets. Styles definitely deserved this win.
Number 9, Mark Henry versus The Undertaker. One of the names that was pitched to end the iconic streak of The Undertaker was Mark Henry. Henry wrestled The Undertaker at WrestleMania 22 in a casket match, and when this news first surfaced, fans were stunned, as there was no way on paper that Henry was gonna defeat the legendary Undertaker in
Yeah,
his
no way.
own match. But according to Mark Henry, during an interview with Heavy, the creative call of Henry defeating The Undertaker was very close to happening, but ultimately, he would turn it down.
Can you imagine if you are backstage and some producer walks up to you and says, "Hey, your match at WrestleMania, you are going to beat the streak. You are going to defeat The Undertaker." And you are such a humble guy that you say, "No, I can't be the one to do it. This streak needs to live on." Me personally, if I got the same offer, I would have been like, "Well, streak's over. I'm the man." So, yeah, that's pretty crazy of him. And they say this a lot with this streak. I've seen a lot of rumors that the streak, year after year, they're like, "Hey, you're going to be the man to end the streak." But this is the craziest one. Can you imagine if Mark Henry was the one to end the streak? No disrespect to Mark Henry, but of all the people, Mark Henry in 2006 does not sound like the best option.
It was close, and there was some conversation about me being the one to break the streak. And if they would have asked me, I would have been like, hell no, I don't want to carry that weight.
That is a lot
Henry,
of
just
weight.
like several other names who have turned the offer down, realized the magnitude of the win. Conquering the streak at that time would have arguably been bigger than any world title win, and it's not something that talent were comfortable
Yeah, that's
openly
arguable,
accepting,
for sure.
which is completely understandable. Number 8, Kane versus The Undertaker. Kane was a name that The Undertaker loved working with. This affection ran so deep that The Undertaker reportedly wanted Kane to break the streak on more than one occasion. It's believed that WrestleMania 20 was one of the events discussed for this to take place, and it was even rumored that The Undertaker wanted Kane to break it at a subsequent WrestleMania event. Kane was well
That
established
hat
for
was
being one of the most selfless
ridiculous.
pro wrestlers of all time, so it was hardly a surprise that the man said no thanks. Kane had such an elite reputation in this regard, and when The Undertaker put over his kayfabe half-brother on a number of pay-per-view events in 2010, this was likely The Undertaker's way of giving Kane a lap of honor. Number
That's
7,
fair,
The
that's
Rock
fair.
versus JBL. Now, in 2005, as WWE were
Rock
putting
versus
together their creative plans
JBL?
for WrestleMania 21, one of the ideas WWE was sold on was JBL defending the WWE title versus The Rock. Now, The
What?
Rock was
I've never
basically
heard of
retired at
this.
this point in time, but WWE believed that this would reignite the product and make fans interested in what WWE were offering. The initial creative plans legitimately called for The Rock to win. However, with The Rock
Wow.
having extensive commitments in Hollywood, it's unknown how this would have worked. Of course, the Great One turned the match and the huge win down, and instead WWE would commit to making John Cena the new face of the company.
Wow. Can you imagine if at this WrestleMania, instead of seeing that just absolute history making moment with John Cena winning his first WWE Championship, if instead of him beating JBL, it was The Rock beating JBL? I mean, I get it. It makes sense. You know, that year's tagline was WrestleMania goes Hollywood. So that does make total sense. But I don't know if I would have dug that as much, but it definitely would have drawn in some fans. Some people would have ordered that pay-per-view just to see The Rock. And what's crazy is now, 20 years later, that's still the case. We are still watching these events just to see The Rock compete. That is just insane. It says so much to his star power. So he was going to lose the title anyway, so I guess it would have been fair. I wonder what their plans were after, though, if they even had plans for it after.
Which was 100% the correct call. Number 6, The Undertaker versus Roman Reigns. WrestleMania 33 was designed to be The Undertaker's final ever WWE match. He was going to wrestle Roman Reigns in the main event of the show, and he insisted on putting Reigns over in the biggest way imaginable.
I think that
Winning
was
the
the
main
right
event
decision.
match was simply out of the question for the dead man, and he wanted to go out by putting over the new face of WWE. Whilst this mentality was appreciated, the match itself did neither man any favors, as it was a complete letdown. The dead man wasn't just in the right place physically or mentally to deliver a high quality match, and this led him to having several more
Yeah, it was
matches
pretty
down the road.
trash.
The Undertaker has spoken at length regarding how bad he felt for messing up Reigns' big moment. Whilst The Undertaker may feel extremely bad, in the long run it failed to hinder either man's legacy or status in WWE.
Yeah, it
Number
really
5,
didn't have
John
an impact
Cena
in the
versus
long
Bray
run.
Wyatt. It's a common consensus that Bray Wyatt should have defeated John
Yes,
Cena
he
at
should have.
WrestleMania 30.
For
Cena
sure.
had no reason to win this match, and Wyatt winning such a huge match on the grand stage could have been an incredible moment for him. 6 years later at WrestleMania 36, the two would have a rematch.
I forgot they
It was
had
almost
this
as if
match.
Cena went out of his way to make Wyatt look good as humanly possible. The two collided in a wild yet fun Firefly Funhouse match, and the match acted as a study of Cena's character and persona. The initial plans for the match were for the two to collide in a regular 1v1 matchup, and if this was indeed planned, then Cena would have done the favor and wouldn't have hesitated in putting Wyatt over. It was reported 3 years prior that Cena insisted on putting Wyatt over on SmackDown during Wyatt's reign as WWE Champion, and Cena evidently wanted to right the wrongs of WrestleMania 30. Number 4, Edge versus The Undertaker.
Nice guy, John.
The main event of WrestleMania 24 was set to be Edge defending the world title against The Undertaker, and internal conversations within the company were stating that Edge was going to win the match. It's unknown why exactly WWE believed it was a time to end the streak, but it was possible that they may have been under the impression that the streak had just run its course. But Edge would ultimately turn down the offer, and Edge reflected on his executive call during an appearance on the Impulsive podcast. Yeah, so we were going to meet in the main event of WrestleMania 24, and I think the streak at that point was 15-0.
They had a lot more left in the
like,
tank.
What do you think? I was like, absolutely not. Why would we do that? That makes zero sense to me. I'm already a made man.
He's
I'm
correct.
in the main event of WrestleMania. What's it going to do for me? Sure, it would do something, I guess, but let's save that. Let's save that for somebody who can really use that boost.
It's crazy to look back at it, and something that is so synonymous with what made WrestleMania like what it is now, you know, the aura, what contributed to it, is something that every year Vince McMahon was trying to end. They were giving it to Mark Henry, and then Mark Henry didn't want to end it. The year before that, they were like, hey, Kane, do you want to end it? At one point, I do remember them they apparently offered it to Randy Orton, and then they offered it to Edge. So he was trying to do it every single year. So we all know who it went to. I don't know if he really needed the boost like that. It's arguable that it really did help him. But Edge wouldn't have made any sense. Just like the others, they needed to continue building that streak. That's insane that they even consider that.
The WWE Hall of Famer had a great point. What benefit would it have had to his standing in the company? Edge
None.
was already a top guy and there was no need for him to receive such a monumental win. Number 3, Batista versus Daniel Bryan. Well, upon returning to WWE in 2014, Batista was promised the world. He was promised a main event match versus Randy Orton at WrestleMania 30, and he was promised a world title reign. And naturally, due to the rise of Daniel Bryan, some of WWE's promises would be broken. Batista would end up tapping out to Bryan in the main event of WrestleMania. According to Batista himself,
Yep.
during an appearance on MLW Radio's Writers' Room, it was his call to put Bryan over in the main event, and the Animal took issue with WWE's call to follow up the win with a poorly executed angle on Raw the next night. Here's what I hated about the whole Daniel Bryan thing. We did the thing at Mania, which was great, man. I wanted to put him over. I agreed to tap out to him. It was no big deal. I never made a big deal out of it. The thing I made a big deal out of was what we did that deal that night. The next night, after he got on off a stretcher, gone through hell the whole night, and it wasn't his call, but they wanted him to come back not selling anything. Like
Why
not selling
would
that
they
he
do
was sore or
that?
beat up or injured. Nothing.
Uh-huh.
Batista was rumored to face Bryan in the main event of the 2014 Payback pay-per-view, but it's believed that Batista was on board with continuing the rivalry between his Evolution stable and the Shield. Knowing how well received this angle was, this was definitely the right call.
So, on one hand, obviously, how things turned out, I'm glad they did end up going that way because WrestleMania 30, that main event, is one of the best WrestleMania endings of all time. Definitely in the top 3, in my opinion. But with that said, man, I have a soft spot in my heart for Batista. And I'm kind of sad that his return ended that way. It really feels like we didn't have it, just bad timing, man. Any other time, I would be so happy if he ended up returning. I mean, he deserves a proper send off. I feel like this was so bad with how that ended. Yeah, but at least that didn't happen. Batista beating Bryan at Payback would have been crazy, and that sounds like it's something Vince would do.
Number 2, Daniel Bryan versus Kofi Kingston. The Kofi Mania storyline in 2019
Imagine if
gripped the
Bryan
wrestling
won.
world, and one of the names responsible for the storyline being such an overwhelming success was Daniel Bryan. Bryan used his political power within the company to push for Kingston to get the spot at WrestleMania 35. And Bryan would insist on putting over Kingston. Kingston would reveal this during an appearance on the After the Bell podcast, and Kingston gave Bryan credit for understanding with what the fans wanted. He pushed for that to happen because the plans weren't for me to be at WrestleMania. I'm not sure who it was for Daniel to face, but it wasn't me. And Daniel went in and went to bat for me and the situation for the title match between us to happen. So we had a big part in it too. He was saying a testament to his state of mind as far as advancing the business and doing the right thing for the people and for the best match and product for the people to take in. So kudos to Daniel Bryan. Now, this was a trend that ran through Bryan's entire WWE
I'm so
run.
glad it
He always
happened
seemed
like
to
that.
know what the audience wanted, and he always knew when it was time to put someone over. And number 1, Randy Orton versus The
Yep,
Undertaker.
exactly what I was talking
One of the
about.
names that fans would have likely accepted to end the streak was the Legend Killer.
The Legend
Randy Orton.
Killer.
In
Perfect.
2005, Orton was slowly emerging as a major player for WWE, and he needed a big win to solidify himself as a future legend for the company. As WWE rolled into Orton versus The Undertaker at WrestleMania 21, there were endless rumors that they were going to have Orton win, but they ultimately had the dead man extend his win streak. It was later reported that Orton turned down the idea of winning that match, which highlighted the respect he had for the dead man. Even though WWE's resident Viper would turn this offer down,
Mutual
The Undertaker
respect.
would put over Orton at subsequent pay-per-view events, including the 2005 SummerSlam. But there you have it, folks. 10 WWE...
Okay, so that was another banger from WrestleMania. That number 1, like I said, I was expecting that one to be somewhere on the list, but that's the one I can for sure at least understand their logic behind it. He was the Legend Killer, so what better way to build him up than to kill the legend of Undertaker at WrestleMania? But in the long run, I'm glad that that did not happen though. But these were some great entries. Like I said, a banger video by WrestleMania. Comment below if you were surprised by any of these. And don't forget to like and of course subscribe. Come join the greatest city in the world, Wrestling City. And that's about it. I will see y'all next time. Peace.